esteemed honor of second most Employee of the Month awards.
Beelzebub, Asmodeus, Satanas, Lucifer.
They are, by far, one of the most striking bands of the modern age. Dazzling outfits that inspire shock and awe in equal measure. Stage presence and performance that far outshine any of their competitors, enrapturing devoted fans and virgin onlookers alike. And music that somehow sounds joyous and energetic while speaking on the most grim of topics. Yes, today we are talking about the band Ghost, and what I personally have found their overreaching theme of all their music to be. Within my own personal viewpoints, of course. And they have been a part of my life for over a decade and have done a lot for me. So I have plenty of opinions. And, of course, you are free to have your own interpretations, and I would love to hear them. Now, Ghost, simply put, is about facing the end of life, the end of civilizations, the end of paradigms, and exploring what lay beyond those moments, and how we can find beauty in the garden of carcasses left behind in Armageddon's wake. So, welcome back to the Stygian Study, my fellow devoted ghouls. I'm your nameless host, as always, and before we jump into today's topic, Full Throttle, I want to preface how this will be formatted for ease of understanding. I'm going to be breaking each album down, song by song, in a semi-dramatic fashion, and analyzing each on how they tie into the themes of the album itself, and what my interpretation of that album is. Then I will be doing conclusion on how that interpretation ties into the greater interpretation of Ghost music as a whole, thus reinforcing my thesis. I also feel it is fair to divide Ghost into two distinctive eras, the first being their first three albums, Opus Eponymous, Infestissumam, and Meloria, as all three of these albums tie into an overarching story, which is the coming of the Antichrist, his actions, and the world that is left behind in his wake. And this was confirmed by a Nimbus School by a Guitar World interview in 2015, so no questions as to what it is. The second era is a bit more theoretical, and it is the post-Meloria era, wherein the new albums take a more personalized thematic approach, and each album holds their own self-contained stories and meanings. This era consists of Prequelle, Impera, and their latest release, Skeleta. I won't be looking into the EPs as they are thematically scattered, mostly made of covers, and they're more related to the lore of the band, which I personally never found that important to the album's overarching themes, despite the lore being something I personally enjoy. So, with this all established, let's put on our face paint, our funniest hats, and prepare to dance to the catchiest songs about Omnicide! Opus Eponymous, or Opus Popus as some have come to refer to it as, is a brutally straightforward album, and thus my analysis of it will be just as brief and straightforward. It is a simple telling of the conception of the Antichrist by a satanic cult, and I personally view this album as somewhat of an accelerationist point of view, a yearning and ushering in of the end so that we can get the apocalypse out of the way and move on to something new. It might not be the most dynamic album they have ever released, but it is still a grand old time to this day. Conclavi con Dio quite literally translates to with spite towards God, and is one of the intro songs to the album. It is the Black Mass that takes place, where the devil himself is invoked into a mask-willing servant, actually a common practice in occult circles, and in that moment he divulges to his followers a plot, how they will conceive the unholy bastard, the Antichrist, the doom of the holy world, and how they will accomplish this feat. The cult rejoices, preparations are made, and cultists are called from all over the world. With cursed scriptures and sacrifices, they prepare to move onwards towards Elizabeth Bathory's castle, where her corpse will be resurrected and used as a vessel for the infernal divinity. As the cult closes in on the decrepit castle of the Countess, her corpse freshly exhumed, they regale us of her tale, who she was, and why she is the perfect vessel for the Antichrist, along with how they will bring her back. Okay, so for context, Elizabeth Bathory was a real countess in what is now modern-day Hungary, and her servants were accused of kidnapping and torturing, and thus murdering, hundreds of women where she reigned. She then took the blood of her tortured victim and bathed in it as a way to keep her young forever, and she actually serves as one of the main inspirations for vampires in the modern day, and actually you can see this in Castlevania Nocturne if you're a fan of that series. Screams echo out into the night, and with Bathory returned, the time is nigh. Summon Satan's avatar into this world. Hear our Satan prayer for the coming of seed. The cult chants, they howl, they pray. Behold now the first step into the end of the world. So with Satan prayer, they summon Satan into the world in a physical form for a short while. And death now is about the conception of the Antichrist. Don't believe me? Listen to this. Yeah, Papa even shouts sex, sex, sex instead of 666, which is a double entendre because sex is the word for the number 6 in Latin. So, yeah, it's a dual meaning there. And I find this really funny because I just didn't realize this until making this video. Time has passed. Bathory has carried the child in secret. Now is the time for his emergence. This is the birth of the Antichrist into the world. And honestly, there's not much else to say. With the unholy child born, we must ask ourselves, what comes next? This world will surely die, but what will come beyond it? Stand brave, stand bold in your actions, for it is by our hands that the Antichrist is here in this world, reveling in this second Genesis. Genesis is the greatest instrumental Ghost has ever made. I won't hear arguments as to otherwise. It is haunting, ethereal, but it is beautiful and hopeful. For what is the end, if not a new beginning? While it may be a straightforward album with not a ton of symbolism to dissect and songs that are rather short, it does carry meaning to it. It is a realization that perhaps the only way to build something new and beautiful is through obliteration. Or at least that's what some would come to think. It is an accelerationist point of view at its core, the desire to speed up the process of something so that it can collapse faster. It is grim, it is grisly. Perhaps you will do things you never thought possible, but to some, for a new future, it's worth it. Infestissumam, released in 2012, follows directly after the events of Opus Eponymous and the birth of the Antichrist. It is the story of the world now existing in the presence of the Antichrist, along with the destruction of the world order that he brings. I personally interpret this album, in the greater themes of Ghost, as those who see the end before them, and they revel in it. They revel in the destruction, in the change, and in the collapse of everything. The opening track, Infestissumam, is a literal prayer for the Antichrist to come and grant salvation to his followers. And it builds following directly into Panaspera ad Inferni, translated meaning through hardship to hell, which is a play off the common phrase Panaspera ad Astra, through hardship to the stars. And it follows this prayer further. In the track commentary, it is told by a ghoul speaking to us that the track deals with human ambition and how, in essence, the pursuit of it is worship of the devil. Combine this with the theme of the album, established thus far, and I see this as the first of the miracles performed by the Antichrist. He is going throughout the world, delivering all the dreams and wishes to those who pray to him, empowering them to pursue their dreams and ambition, and empowering him with followers to walk with him to destroy the world. Word of the Antichrist miracles are spreading, causing mass confusion and terror. How could this be? How could he exist? What are we to do? What does this mean for us? Secular Haze has been stated in the track commentary to be meant of feeling like we are drifting in a storm with no hope of escape, and that our only moments of warmth can be found in acceptance and freezing to death. Of course, this storm is a metaphorical storm of confused and conflicted belief. The fog is omnipresent. You know that his son is near omnipotent. This secular haze is a mist that clouds the minds of those who listen to the words of the truth. This is a haze that clouds the mind of the devoted, shattering their beliefs, with the only moments of clarity being offered if you accept the worship of the Antichrist. Gigolo Harmegido is, in my eyes, the Antichrist inflaming the lust of those who have yet to become a believer. On the literal note, it is about the suggestion of gigolos being male prostitutes who abuse a relationship for material gain, which, story-wise, I think is actually the church. They abuse the minds and pockets of those underneath their thrall for their own gain. The Antichrist steps in, offering temptation. Yes, in the form of lust and desire, to further undermine the church of its power. Goulet is a song about nostalgia, according to the track commentary, and in my eyes, this is about those who are fearful and conservative, clinging to a sense of old glories, putting them on a pedestal, a zombie queen, not understanding that the thing they worship is an idol of heresy in and of itself. It begins with a recounting of the demonic kings of hell, those who are most loyal unto Lucifer, Belial, he who is without a master, Behemoth, the destroyer and demon of gluttony, Beelzebub, lord of the flies, Asmodeus, king of lust and fire, Satan, the adversary, and Lucifer, the light bringer. Year Zero is the climax of Infestissumam's story. The gates of hell rattle in the wind. The kings of hell roam free. The people rise up against the church, and the Antichrist ascends above all to usurp the throne of God once and for all. And that he does, explosively, violently. A hush falls over the world. It is time to build tomorrow. Body and Blood is about literal cannibalism, necroviolence at its most primal, and it's meant to mock the communion of Christ, namely emphasizing that what goes in must go out. The track commentary emphasizes even further, highlighting that no matter what goes into one's body, it will always come out as, well, you know. It's meant to highlight that the church is losing control in this story, and their influence is collapsing underneath the weight of itself, and they are falling to more and more depraved acts. Idolatry is the final collapse of the church, where its lies are exposed for what they are. They paint the vices that delight the human senses as sins, turning life into a monotonous drivel, and they scourge the pure of mind and soul with the guilt of sin and torture. Idolatrine is a play on words of idol, an object of worship, and latrine. So altogether, the name of the song literally means church of shit, and that this church is only meant for the devoted simpletons and imbeciles who cannot hope to function in the new world of absolute freedom. With the world obliterated and the churches now exposed for what it is, how are we to navigate the world at large? What could we possibly do? Simple. Become lost in the gaze of the new divinity, learn the truth of human existence, and embrace the eternal and flaming grace of Satan. Sin, and sin well. It is the only spice of life you could possibly need. Sail past the lies of the Bible and rejoice in his gaze, eternally. Monstrous Clock is likewise the experience of being a human in the immediate aftermath, being lost in the world and finding peace and unity in the newfound worship of sin and Satan. The rhythmic chants are that of a mass of people who have come together to praise the new Lord of the world, and moreover, they are literally coming together because the song also doubles in meaning as an orgy. The track commentary made this clear enough. The world can begin anew under a new rule, one based upon humanity, its sins, and while the road ahead is murky, it is time to celebrate the now. Meloria is subsequently about living in a world after the death of God, or a massive paradigm shift of equal measure, and the new world that is born from it. Meloria literally means better things in Latin, and the album itself sounds futuristic and foreboding. You've survived the fire, you've survived the destruction. Now here's your gift, your promised future, the dawn of a new age.
Except this is wrong. It's bleak. There's nothing here. No lights. The cities are empty. And that is by design. Meloria is an album about the search for better things. But the album itself details every painstaking moment, the tears, the agony, the ultimate price of what it takes to build that beautiful new tomorrow. It is the exploration of multiple individual stories in an attempt to navigate a world where God is dead. Spirit, the opening track, is a song about drinking, highlighted by the fact that the chorus is literally saying Spirit Absinthe. It's a double entendre, because it's also meant to sound like Spirit Absent and Spirit Absinthe in a spiritual sense. Alcohol is used as a vehicle for an empty spirit. And upon further analysis of this song, it reads as a drunken depression, hopelessly searching to the bottom of every bottle for spirit itself, for an answer to the world we now inherit, a plea that is, of course, answered in total silence. Pinnacle to the Pit carries two meanings with it. For one, it is about the literal fall of Lucifer into hell, which one could easily identify upon first listening. But with the added context that this album is taking place after the death of God and the fall of human civilization as it was, now paints a different picture. We are all Lucifer now. We have all stood triumphant upon our thrones holding both scepter and crown, yet in a world where everyone is king, such marks of divinity mean nothing. And now we fall into the pit. We must live with our choices and endure this new hollow world that is filled with no answers but pain. Cerise has a unique meaning to me because while God is dead and the world lay empty, people crave a spiritual home. A human without belief will believe in, anything, and they will search for anything to believe in. Cerise is only one of those answers. Cerise is actually a patron deity of magic and sorcery in Hellenistic beliefs, and so I believe this song is about one of those lost souls searching for something to believe in. I can see the thunder that is breaking in your heart, and in that moment of silence, an old deity does reach out to one of the lost human beings, and humanity begins to reclaim old beliefs and powers that were once lost, answering a world of silence. He is a beautiful ballad that still stands as one of my favorites to this day. It's about love. It's about the new, beautiful love that can be formed in a world that goes far beyond what the initial world order made for us. Despite that Meloria is largely about the growing pains and is quite melancholic, let us not forget that Lucifer's chief title was Lightbringer, and that light can lead us unto better things should we have eyes to see. And in this case, that is new forms of love. New forms of blasphemous, beautiful love that wouldn't have been possible under the guiding eyes of the church. Mummy Dust is now the story of greed's emergence into the world. When there is no God or promise of heaven, why not stuff one's belly fat full of coins and jewels? I was carried on a wolf back to corrupt humanity. I will pummel it with opulence, with corpulence, and greed. The term mummy dust in this song is literally a play on the fact that dollar bills bear the iconography of long-since dead men, and the inherent value of what makes a dollar bill is quite literally as valuable as dust. The song mocks those who give into their greed as their chief hunger in life. In God You Trust, further mocking the dollar bill, is that quite literally what each bill says upon it. But it is not the God of old. It is the God of greed. We turn our attention now to the world at large, and what is it we see? Well, frankly, it's a shit show. Pathetic humans in despair. The oasis is a poisoned well. With humanity now bereft of belief, we turn on each other. We stop caring for one another, even as the precious resources we rely upon become rotten and fall into disrepair. In a world without God, in a world with no true unifying belief outside of fulfilling one's base desires, all beauty lies within you. And see now the inferno your ambition has wrought. And once again like this, we are all Lucifer. Our infernal majesty towers over others, and mighty we all reign in a hell, each of our own making. As we look out into the world, and we see the folly of those around us, you make up your mind, and chase your desires to the bitter end. eyes on the horizon over the corpses to the prize you've kept your eyes on. It speaks to the folly of ambition. It speaks of regret. As you collapse to your knees, begging for the return of the old, begging for simpler times, the burden of freedom becomes far too heavy, and its bite is far too deep. Don't forget, you asked for this. There is no absolution. You can only hunt your desires to the ends of the earth. There is no song on this album as profound as this one to me. As we begin to plunge ourselves into the dark, as we just start to see the true shape of the world, as we turn our heads away, we look for the old ways, and we pray, but we can't turn back. As you sob and throw yourself into the mud, you are approached by an old friend, Lucifer. He lifts you up, in your despair, mocking you as he does. You're so goddamn frail, failing for a change. You just had to know all about the world, but you will never know, because no one ever told you how. The world is on fire, and you are here to stay and burn with me, and we are here to revel forevermore. In a world without God, in a world without reason or hope, empty of the promised future, there is no strength to be found in turning back. All that lay ahead for you is to be brave and face the darkness and become all that you can be. The world is a funeral pyre, and humanity's actions may be bringing about the true closing act for us all. But be brave. Find strength in the acceptance of this bitter end. It doesn't matter how you cry. There is no hope, for God is dead, and we have all killed him. Meloria is about a world after the end of the world. It is about the end itself, and what is beyond that threshold. It is an album that touches upon mourning, grief, the loss of purpose, the absence of faith, the emptiness of the aftermath, along with the burdens that come with absolute freedom. However, this album teaches us that in those moments of pain, you can see the seeds of that better future growing just underneath the surface, and that in spite of the pain of the now, to reach that new tomorrow, you have to keep pushing ever onwards, through the fire, onto the stars. Prequelle is an album that asks you who you will be when it is your time. Prequelle emerges from a period of uncertainty and sorrow. Papa Emeritus, the band's iconic frontman and anti-pope, had been unmasked during a lawsuit from former band members, revealing that his true identity is Tobias Forge. And story-wise, the character had died numerous times already, so not that big a deal. But I think Prequelle marks a narrative shift for the band to become more introspective, stepping away from mysticism and fantasy and stepping into a new style of being. The result is Prequelle, an underappreciated album that asks one simple question. Death is coming, so who will you be when you face it? The opening track, Ashes, is an iteration of the classic nursery rhyme, Ring Around the Rosie, with additional elements being added to speak of ashes on the riverside, in the sea, and all around. It explodes into a motif of Spooksnot from Meloria into the true opening track, Rats. Rats is about a cataclysm in the form of a disease. We as listeners have front row seats to the horrors before us. There is no mercy, there is no grace. It is a joyous and violent affair as the world around us buckles underneath the crushing weight of sudden Armageddon. Your family is not safe. You are not safe. Your soul is not safe. This song closes with one haunting message. They're still coming after you, and there's nothing you can do. Following this calamity, you search for answers. And what is it you find? Well, it is just as cruel and merciless as the vermin who fractured your world. A new power has risen from the ashes, taking the opportunity of the cataclysm to usurp all that was and place themselves at the top of the totem pole. Faith is perhaps the heaviest track Ghost has ever produced, and it is one of the most cruel. We stand before a new force in the world, one that has spread like a virus and controls everything that remains. And despite your cries and pleas, this force does not care for you or your tears or for those they have lost. They celebrate you as you lament. They are banking and preying on your downfall. They do not care for you. You are alone. Faith will not save you. Now, See the Light was at one point a track I couldn't figure out how it fit into the album. It was so contradictory upon itself. However, upon further investigation and listening to it over and over and over and over and over again, I too have seen the light. This song is a confrontation with truth. And story-wise, I believe that we, in our grief, are granted a surprise audience with Lucifer himself. The following lines: "Many a sin I have witnessed, and in many indeed I have been. Often the one who has painted an image grotesque and obscene." Lucifer confronts us and offers us a solution to our grief, a cure to our traumas and calamity. Eat me, drink me, and you'll see the light. Take into his essence. See the blinding light. But what is it we see? Miasma is the answer to what we see. It is an instrumental song, so it's a little hard to interpret and can be confusing. It's roaring, and also melancholic, and also has a fucking incredible sax solo on it for some reason. However confusing it may be, it is still the answer to the question. What was that light we saw? What did Lucifer give us? Simple. You're going to die. So, best be ready. And it explains all the highs and lows that come with it. It explains why this song has so many different elements to it, because what more shocking and groundbreaking news could one receive outside of, yeah, buddy, you're gonna kick the bucket. So, get ready. With shocking news in hand, with this haunting truth upon you, what is it you do? Well, you live life. You live every single day like it's your last. Each minute now stuck in an unending twilight of living viciously in the moment and prepared that each second will strike midnight and you will fade away into nothing. And perhaps those sweet, delicious moments will be enough for you to be free of that blistering anxiety, to forget the traumas that occurred to you earlier. And amid the ripping disco tunes, Dance Macabre stands as one of Ghost's most popular songs. And Dance Macabre itself is the dance with death. As there have been many medieval paintings that depict this dance, and it is the triumph of death overall. So, try as you might, you don't forget. It never goes away. You will always remember. You are going to die. Pro Memoria literally means for memory when translated from Latin, or for the record. And it is a song that pesters us with a thought. The meeting with Lucifer never left your mind, and despite living in rapturous ecstasy, it never cleared your thoughts. He never let you forget. Don't you forget about dying. Don't you forget about your friend Death. Don't you forget that you will die. And no matter what you do, you can't cheat death. You can't beat it. You can't lie to it. You can't stab it. You can't save yourself. You're going to die. And this song acts as essentially memento mori, the act of remembering death through trinkets, essentially. And it is our anxieties manifested. That is all this song is. It is that constant reminder, that thought in the back of your mind scratching at you constantly. So all it's saying is, for the record, you're going to die. It doesn't matter what you do. Time's up. The bell has tolled. The Reaper is coming. You never wanted me to appear. You never wanted it to be over. And while it may not be fully upon you yet, you see that it's coming. And while we rest enjoying our moments alive, someone else has already been claimed, and yours is coming up fast. You cannot change your life. You cannot undo what you have done. You cannot unsell the time you've been given. Make peace. Now. This song literally translates to Hellfire. It is the final instrumental of the album, and one of the most somber and foreboding. And as I see it, We are on the final day. We can see the end of the road in sight, into hellfire. So we sit, we remember, we think in silence, and we contemplate our life in the face of the final act. You are dying. The Reaper is here and she is calling for you. It's not violent. It's not painful. There's no Stygian river to cross. You are simply slipping into eternity. And as you begin to fade, the Reaper asks you one simple question. If you had life eternal. There's no point in answering. That will only exacerbate your pain. Simply fade. So what is Prequelle about? What does it add to our thesis? Well, it adds this. The end will always come. Death will always come. It doesn't matter if you're paralyzed by fear, if you whip yourself into a frenzy of decadent delights, if you bargain, beg, plead, if you cry, death will come for you. So in your final moments, who will you be? Will you stand tall and accept the end as the Reaper's scythe reaps your soul? Or will you ponder if you had life eternal and live in that endless moment of regret? But nothing is eternal. No one escapes death. Not even the mightiest of empires. It is time now we turn to Impera, a monumental album released in 2022, covered in glittering gold and assaulting us with sky-splitting sounds. It is an album about the rise and subsequent fall of an empire, with the cover spouting a reference to the ever-controversial Aleister Crowley, as Papa Emeritus with a half-constructed face, with the other being hollow. Now, before we begin, I actually really would like to highlight this pose here. You see, Crowley used this pose, and one might be wondering what it might be. Well, it's a ritual sign used in Thelema, the primary practice of magic that Aleister Crowley was associated with, and it is used as a way to invoke the god form of Vir/Pater, or Pan or Bacchus, depending on who we're talking to, and is commonly used in many rituals, one of those being the Star Ruby ritual, which according to this Reddit user was used to banish negative influence and draw down the divine energy for self-empowerment, which it could be symbolizing, seeing as I view this album personally as the journey of and through a doomed empire, along with how to survive its fall through self-actualization. But I think Ghost here was using it mockingly, as Crowley was often depicted as a charlatan, and it is by far his most famous photo, so I believe the purpose of this album cover is to highlight the self-aggrandizing, deceptive nature of glorious empires and a monument to false prophets. A slow track that builds with militaristic drum beats, introducing us to a very different kind of world from our past albums. One's not steeped in satanic mysticism or haunting haze, or a world stricken of plague, but one painted in gold, proud and strong, confident in its position in the world. But its thunderous presence is met with an untimely silence, right at the end, leaving the listeners waiting for the next aching note. It screams in your face. It is majestic and loud, overwhelming in its delivery. The thoughts of doom, just the glory of its action and presence. However, this facade of gold masks a miserable crime beneath it. The song speaks of a violent murder of a woman by the name of Hypatia by a mob via stoning. What is most wretched about this is that it is claimed in the song that this is a matter of love, an act divine. Even the chanting of Hypatia's name is sung in a divine manner, and they tell of how this action is what they will build their new empire from. Now, Hypatia was a real woman. She was a Greek mathematician, philosopher, scientist, inventor, and head of the Platonist school in Alexandria, Egypt in 400 AD, tolerant of all and true champion of the sciences. However, she was pagan and an enemy of the church, and so, in a heinous act of violence, she was murdered by a mob of Christians led by a lector named Peter. During the season of Lent, they stormed her carriage, dragged her out into the building known as the Caesarion, murdering her in cold blood and casting her corpse outside the city limits. And who knows how much knowledge was lost. But in the light of Impera, this act of depraved slaughter marks the beginning of something new and glorious. However vapid it may be, the new empire is born. So what is life in this new empire like? Surely it is grand and enjoyable. All that violence had to be worth it, yes? Spillways paints a picture of suffering, and keeping that suffering in order to feed the beast that demands its hunger be sated. It speaks heavily of shame and attempts to keep all inside so as not to seem unclean or rotten. What is interesting is that we listeners are not those who are the accusers, we are the victims. We are the ones in the position of inferiority to the voice that mocks and shames us for being terminally ill with human rot. A rot that is only our base instincts of being a human being. So this empire we inherit is not one of kindness and joy, but of cruel judgment, and one that feeds on the oppression of others. The upholding of the status quo and belittles those who fall outside of its predetermined way of being. In your greatest shame, you believe you have no place amongst the new empire. You are a stain, worthless, rotten, and alone. However, you are not alone. A demon appears before you in smoke and shadow. He offers you a hand, a contract, a chance, a transformation and enlightenment. In fear, you deny this satanic figure in the dark. He obliges and assures you that if you change your mind, you can always reach him. Just simply call out his name. Mephistopheles, your little sunshine. Now, this song feels obtuse in the record, though not the most obtuse, but its place in the story is firm. It takes place immediately following Spillways and the casting down of us in our shame by the powers that be. Only then are we to be confronted by the demon Mephistopheles. Now, Mephistopheles is a demon famous from the Faustian legend, whose name translates to "he who flees from light." And in the Faustian legend, he represents the devil, and in that story, the deal that Faust makes with Mephistopheles is supposed to serve as a warning for those who seek empowerment beyond the Christian order. However, in modern-day practices of demonolatry, the spiritual philosophy revolving around the worship and befriending of demons, and theistic Satanism, Mephistopheles is a demon who is renowned for being a spirit of contradiction, highlighting the flaws in one's worldview, and teaches one how to unleash their hidden potential. So with this knowledge in mind, the title of this song is a little bit of a joke, as Mephistopheles quite literally flees from the light, but this could be a nod to the fact that he is actually acting as a guiding light for us in this album. He offers us a way beyond the world we inhabit, and teaches us how to go beyond the boundaries of the Empire, and transform indefinitely. And despite our denial of him, he assures us we can always reach him. And I would like to highlight that in the music video, Mephistopheles actually saves the woman before she crashes into the dirt and ushers her onto a new area of the world where she can build a new life. Following our encounter with that ancient demon and promptly denying him, we return to the world as it is, the towering buildings and bustling streets. But our vision has changed. The world is different now. It's no longer coated in gold, it's rotten and decayed. It's falling apart right before our eyes, but nothing has changed. This is simply how it has always been. You turn to face the sound of a gigantic scream blaring a message at you. We are searching for the divine. The crowd bustles in excitement, eager to hear, but the words that emerge from the speaker are just as rotten as the world around you. The man on the screen speaks of a chosen few, those who are destined for greatness by biological and divine will. They speak of how these who are chosen will cast judgment upon the rest to ensure that we are ready for the day that the divine decides to speak back to us, for the day that those who are chosen, those who believe, will be ushered to the promised land. How could any of this be right? How does any of this make sense? If we have such great technologies to reach realms beyond our own and wield mighty powers, why not save all people? A terrible thought creeps its way back into your mind. Maybe he was right. The song, to me, represents how the elite of the world present themselves as some divine upper class that always seems to know better, that they always look at the big picture for all of humanity. It is symbolic of their idea that the ends always justifies the means, and that despite the harsh conditions, those who follow will be saved in the end. When in reality, they possess all the power in the world to aid the downtrodden and save the Empire from the rot within, If only they would stop looking at the heavens and focus instead upon the earth. The second instrumental of this album, but instead of being triumphant and building like Imperium, this song is heavy, slow, oppressive. Our eyes open, we see the Empire for what it is, a machine of domination and nothing else. You make your way home, but the screens turn on once again. This time you see a new face, a big man with a booming voice. He speaks violently and angrily, he curses and shouts, demanding that the common people are at risk and we must act now. The next day you see him again, spouting a similar message, except this time he is debating a well-known scholar. He curses at the scholar, insulting them, demeaning their ideas and highlighting how they are separate from the common people, and that they know nothing from their ivory towers. The days following you see him again, and again, and again. Posters of him, hats. His followers have begun to identify each other by quippy lines and jokes. His followers hail this man as the savior of the Empire, that through him they will reach the Golden Age. No matter who has to die. 20s is that million-dollar word we hear about so much nowadays. Fascism. It's about how fascism manifests and how it resonates with its followers. The faster beats and the heaviness of the song is a reflection of the bombastic nature of that fascist language used in order to spread the word and wow its followers. It is also now the second time on a Ghost record that features the word fuck, highlighting how fascism uses obscenity and harsh language to not only relate to its followers, but to shock onlookers and make a statement. This song also invokes militaristic and violent language and points to us, listeners, as the next in the chain of command, and that they are at war. 20 furthermore goes out of its way to make an explicit enemy, another first in a Ghost song, out of Ivy League dopes, and how they mock the masses, which emphasizes how fascism is driven by a strong sense of anti-intellectualism. The song also has a very explicit nod to real-life political figure, and how he has grabbed women by their... I'm sure you know who I'm talking about. This song encapsulates fascism and its rise at its core. You sit, you reflect. You listen to your heart and you realize it has always been this way. The Empire was built on blood. This world feeds on suffering. It demands it. Despite all the benefits and privileges it has gifted you, they have come at a steep cost. And in the light of this revelation, what now? Darkness at the Heart of My Love is, on its surface, a song about an abusive form of love. A love that may be true in its affections, but not in its intentions. Papa sings about it, knowing how vile his love is, how dark, how cold, and seemingly sweet it is, and how you cannot escape it no matter what you do. Even if you attempt to leave, just sit and let it happen. In the story of Impera, I think this is an ideological split. It is the acknowledgement that the world you knew is indeed rotten to its core. It is a somber feeling, knowing that all you thought you loved and believed in was in fact built upon the tortured backs of faces you've never met. Justice never served, screams seldom heard. The line repeating, "I'm with you always, love is all you need," is a lie at its core. Yes, even if you now understand your home is rotten to its core, it is always going to be a part of you in some way. However, love is not all you need. You do not need to love your abuser. You do not need to love the prison that holds you down. There is nothing redeeming about this empire. All those in power kneel to kiss the ring of the big man from the TV. You can't even muster the willpower to be shocked. Driftwood is a song that, according to an interview by Revolver, is about making fun of former Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence. Not only that, but it mocks all figures in power who will lie, cheat, and sacrifice for their own personal gain, despite their morals opposing their methods. Grift means to obtain wealth illicitly, and in the colloquial sense, grift in media is to appeal to a demographic you don't actually care about or have interest in, but spout off nonsense that you will disagree with, all for the gain of money and power, usually in reference to conservative media such as Fox News. And it is a bit of play on words with driftwood, essentially comparing the beliefs of the grifter to that of driftwood, something with no real anchor to hold itself down and will simply move wherever the waves will take it, even if it is to their own detriment. There is no turning back. Call out to the darkness. Call out to him. Accept his offer. It hurts. It's grim. But the blessing bestowed upon you lights the way. It is time to carry on. Bite of passage is, in fact, a reference to rite of passage. Bite here is just emphasizing the pain of that action. The city streets that were once so comforting now feel like the walls of a necropolis. Violence awaits around every corner. The downtrodden are reduced to living from the gutters. The king is a fraud, his lies exposed, and yet no one seems to care. With infernal knowledge in hand, you brave the night, you leave for good. The empire is crumbling, and you will not be caught in the aftermath. Respite on Spatial Fields may be just one of the greatest songs Ghost has ever created. It is initially a nod to Jack the Ripper, as Spitalfields is near Whitechapel, where Jack the Ripper committed most of his murders, and was one of the areas that was heavily neglected that led to his murders. The song even has a shirt that references Jack himself, mimicking the drawing of the murder nemesis of neglect. However, I see the song as the final end of the Empire. Not one that would go out with a bang, but with the echo of a whisper, as its inhabitants gnaw at each other and the aristocracy fattens itself upon the corpses, not even shrouding its crimes anymore. We, the listener, escape the Empire. We leave it as it begins to buckle upon itself, Mephistopheles and his teachings acting as our shadow, and us acting as the guiding light for our own future. We go softly into the night, accepting things as they are, forging our own path, away from the dogma of the realm. Impera is about the rise and end of empires. It seeks to show us, despite their apparent shimmering divinity, it is forged with fool's gold, hollow and rotten from within, requiring the suffering of others to sustain itself, and despite it not exploding to pieces like in Infestissumam, it collapses nonetheless. It is not just the death of an empire, but it is the death of our worldview. It is the death of the world we knew, and this album shows us that we must be brave enough to find our own path in the collapse of it all. We arrive at the end, the final album that has been released thus far. Skeleta, an album that Tobias Forge himself stated is meant to hold up a mirror to the listener, and what a reflection we get to see. For this album is about death. All of life's little deaths. Memories, souls, and how we can find strength from this unstoppable force of nature. And instead of carrying one continuous story, as with the previous works of Ghost, this album is a bit of an anthology, the story of many people in mourning, in darkness, and lost. And how, throughout all of life's little deaths, we can come to appreciate that which has become humanity's most primal fear. A haunting note carries over, a tone of mourning, but it builds and builds. Shattered dreams, pieces of a broken heart, trauma, carry them and move with them. Turn them into something new. Peacefields, to me, is the perfect follow-up to Respite, a somber note turning into a brilliant new dawn. Despite the destruction, the darkness, the pain, the scars will fade, and from them, something new. Our new Papa Emeritus tells us to carry our dreams and hold on to what we believe in. The black moon that hangs over us is not an ill omen or curse. It is a new moon. The beginning of a new season. A harbinger of death, yes. But that reaping signals the start of something that will be bright and beautiful. We only need to stand as the light in the darkness. We have already endured so much. Nothing could stop us now. According to Tobias Forge, Satanize is a song that is about a priest who falls in love but mistakes the feeling for a demonic possession. And in the anthology of Skeleta, exploring death, I think this song represents the death of faith. The chorus even speaks of being laicized, which is when a priest surrenders their clerical duties, and the conflict of mind that brings about. Being Satanized can be seen as a shifting of one's worldview, finding beauty in something profane, and being unable to shake that feeling away from oneself. It's as if it's devouring you and breaking you apart. Satanized is about that kind of death, when everything seems to shift. Originally written for Arcane Season 2 for Isha and her death, this song is about living. It's about life, despite how winding and confusing it may be. The road that leads to nowhere is long, and those that seek to go there are lost. That long road is life itself, and nowhere is death, and only those who seek to go there are truly lost. But the thing that will keep us on our path, the thing that will keep us on the road, the thing that will keep us going are the memories of those we love. Our God, our light, those are the memories of our loved ones, living and dead, and their influence on us, and may they shine forevermore. Translating to the Borealis depths, this song is about the sting of betrayal and the memories it leaves behind. Throwing those, but keeping these. All the rights that couldn't undo wrongs. All the songs that couldn't mend your heart. Slit it up and tore it apart. These lyrics, along with the Palace of Frozen Tears and the title of the Borealis Depths, makes me believe that the individual in this song is in a state of mourning within the ninth circle of hell, treason, where all the sinners here have been frozen from the neck down with frozen tears upon their faces, where their only hope of reprieve is to be devoured by Lucifer. Now, obviously, this is metaphorical, but they are feeling the sting of betrayal, and it has uprooted what they were. And it has uprooted what were once comforting memories, and turned them into tools of torture. But Papa Emeritus is there to show us there is a way out. They can't escape because they can't let go. They must let new love in. They must face the rising sun and let it melt away all the ice. Let love break these chains. Let life carry on in spite of betrayal, in spite of death, and rise just as the sun does. Now, a cenotaph is a memorial built for someone who is buried elsewhere, and Tobias says he got that idea from this Disney movie, Coco, wherein the afterlife functions on memories and keeping those who passed alive in our hearts. Cenotaph is a joyful song that depicts a person casting ashes into the wind from the top of a mountain that scatters all across the world, and the deceased becomes one with everything. And in that moment, and in every moment, every sensation, smile, tear, jubilation, our loved one are always with us, so long as we keep them in our hearts. And it is a unique way of coping with death, viewing them as someone who is everywhere and in every moment in everything we do. And the most important thing is that no one truly dies so long as their memories are with us. Micilia Amori. So, this is about a very specific type of a death/end. It's about an orgasm. I mean, the song literally translates to love rockets. Yeah, there's just not much else. I think this is just a fun song. Though, in a sense, the death of an emotion is extremely important and viable to... What am I saying? I'm going to delete this. Fuck you. There is one type of death that has appeared all across Ghost discography, and it is Armageddon. From Opus to now, the apocalypse has been everywhere in the imagery of ghosts. Marks of an Evil One invokes each of the four horsemen of the apocalypse. Correctly, I might add, they mention conquest and not pestilence, and how they emerge one by one. The song also mentions he who is satanically enthroned, a tyrant who is the focal point of this song, who spreads his sinister mark around the world to oppress all under his thumb. Now, I think they're using satanically enthroned to highlight the way this ruler rules is through sinister and vile means, holding on a power that is not his. And as for what the song means, well, it's talking about Donald Trump and moreover the mark of fascist rulers. That mark, you know the one. It's a bleak and cruel world where one man holds far too much power and his influence is everywhere. However, this song has one very important element that does shine the light of positivity. The horsemen are here. The apocalypse has come, and if they herald the end of days in a dark and cruel world, is that a bad thing? I mean, it's certainly terrifying, but if ghosts have shown us one thing, is that the ends can become beginnings. So while it might So while it may be terrifying, the apocalypse might be a necessary thing, because if the influence of evil is everywhere, then maybe a bit of a clean slate might do us all some good. Of course, that just might be my way of looking at it, especially in the totality of Skeleta's anthology. Death can and is a very necessary force. Have you ever loved something profane? Something forbidden? It's the kind of love that poets write sonnets about. It's the kind of love which lights some of the brightest burning fires inside the human soul. Umbra is about that kind of love. The altar is lit with black candles, the darker the better. So thrilling, it's killing you. A love that you clutch onto in spite of everything, and everyone telling you it is wrong. In the chapel of the Holy One, in the presence of the chosen Son, I see your light shine through. In the shadow of the Nazarene, I put my love in you. Few things I want to draw attention to is with the lines, the altar is lit with black candles. Okay, so black candles can symbolize a few things. For one, in the colloquial sense, black candles can invoke the imagery of the Black Mass, the unholy sermon, the forbidden rites, and the song highlights that the darker it is, the better it is. It thrills you, it tempts you forward. Despite it being wrong, it's something you can't turn away from. If anything, it just makes it better. However, if we look at the symbology of black candles, in a spiritual sense, they are used to work with the dark moon, death magic, and purification, and much more. When applied to Umbra, one could infer that the candles are symbolizing death itself here, or simply the darkness, as Umbra is also the fully shaded inner region of a shadow. Umbra is also Latin for shade, a type of ghost that resides within the underworld, so Umbra as a song has many ties to the concept of darkness, shadows, and death. Death becomes your lover. This love, however, is forbidden. It's an unholy thing. And the Nazarene are an evangelical Christian sect that holds sanctification and thus purity paramount to being a good Christian, and that sin should not be an everyday occurrence, but a rare one. Of course, in the song, this is merely metaphorical to the greater culture of Puritanism, and that in spite of that, we love that within the shadows. We make it our angel. We lift it higher and higher above. And in the story of Skeleta, it is speaking of a love of death itself. Not the sort of, fucking kill everyone way, but in the way that one could come to love the messiness of nature, the dirt, the grime, the chaos of it all. It's a brutal but necessary force in our lives, one that is worthy of love and reverence just as any other force. Our journey is ending. And so is this album. A slow, melancholic mantra. Our days of paying for our crimes are over. Our days of mourning have ended. We now walk with death side by side, acknowledging her presence, her necessity, and her purpose. This song personally reminds me of La Mancha Mori from Infestissumam, with its rhythmic chanting of the chorus, "Come with me to the rainbow's edge, come with me to the Holy Land." And I like to imagine this song as mirroring life eternal. However, instead of pondering what if we had life eternal, we simply accept the transition from one realm to the next. It is beautiful and comforting, assuring us that there is time to love again, to mend friendships, to begin again. Even acknowledging that it understands that this transition is a painful one. And so we go to that rainbow's edge and cross into that shimmering unknown. With one final farewell, we go into that good night, despite how afraid we really are. Skeleta is about facing the little deaths of life. A graduation, a breakup, a climax, losing a loved one, and learning how to love death. Learning how to live in balance while being able to smile at death, and to understand that even though death is terrifying, death is painful, it is sometimes beautiful, and new things can be born from it, and we can learn so much from its influence. Whew! And here we are, 6 albums down and a lot of different stories and tones. As we can see, Ghost is a band that throughout all of their albums is teaching us about the end. Teaching us of the many reactions those who face it will have, and what we can learn from each of them. Every album carries a different story that tells us to embrace these changes, embrace the freedom that comes with each of these ends, and that even during the end of it all, we can find joy in those moments, and that perhaps As we stare into the abyss and let darkness touch our souls, everything else seems that much brighter in comparison. Shadows, after all, can't exist without light. A bit more of an experimental topic today. I just really love this music, and I wanted to try and analyze music for once, and I also wanted to share how I view it. Ghost has been a part of my life since my angstiest days as a 14-year-old kid who just discovered what heavy metal was, and one that also decided that maybe the world as it wasn't the way I wanted to be. And they have been there through my darkest moments, when careers fell apart, when my heart was broken again and again. Ghost was always there with a catchy riff, a bellowing chorus, and a lighthearted attitude that helped me pick myself up. This music changed me, truly. So thank you for listening to this video. If you liked it, please consider subscribing. And if I see that people resonate with this sort of stuff, I am happy to share more of my thoughts on more different types of bands. I'm already working on a different one, TBH. And please, I want to hear your interpretations in the comments. I make these videos so discussions can get started, and we can all share our thoughts. But beyond that, please, have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you're at in the world, and thank you so much for visiting the Stygian Study. Bye-bye!